Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you. Featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today, I'm so pleased that for the second time, I'm having Halie Loren on my show. Now, the first thing you notice is her voice. It's gorgeous, it's graceful, and somehow earthy and ethereal all at once. It's an instrument perfectly matched to the songwriting talents of the artist who channels it. And her name again is Halie Loren, and I welcome Halie to the Susan Brender Show.
Thank you so much for having me back, Susan.
You know, I had such a great time interviewing you, and we got such a response from it, and you're doing so many interesting things now. Let's start off by telling the audience what are the things that you're doing that you really feel passionate and want to tell our audience about.
Well, there's a multitude of things, as you mentioned. I'm just about to go into the studio to work on a brand new album of original music. I'm really excited about that, and I have a Kickstarter campaign going to help make that happen through the support of fans. I'm going to be going to the UK for the first time and New York later next month. Traveling. I just got back from a tour in Japan. I have a lot of new music that's coming up, and just so much happening in this year. This has been a really big year for some pretty big changes and new steps in my musical journey. It's been quite wonderful, and it continues to be so. And this whole season is going to be quite busy for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, let's talk about you've now done 9 albums to date, which is an impressive number, you know. But even more so since you were involved in the recording and producing of these albums, now we hear that you're getting ready to record the 10th, which you said you just did. Now, that's a lot of albums to record, but let's talk about this 10th album. Is it a different approach from the way you did it before?
Right, it is very different. I'm going to be starting recording in October. And every album previously, I have self-produced many of them along with my collaborator and friend Matt Treader, who plays piano on many of the albums people have heard me put out before. But neither of us are involved in the production of this album at all. I will be linking up with a UK-based producer named Troy Miller, who is just amazing. He's really coming up in the production world worldwide. He's currently working on Jamie Cullum's newest album. He's worked with Gregory Porter, Loren. He recorded Becca Stevens' last album, and he worked with Amy Winehouse for a long time. So it's going to be a totally different kind of process, not self-producing. And I've never done since the very beginning of my recording career, I haven't done an album of all original music before. And so it's very personal.
Yeah. So
different.
You didn't compose anything, did you? I mean, you didn't get involved in that side. You had him do it, or who did?
Oh, no. I definitely compose as well. Yeah,
you do. Now, you started out as more of a pop singer, songwriter, before you moved into the jazz genre. Now, jazz is, it's got a very special audience. Not everybody who is young understands jazz. So why did you change from pop to jazz? Because it would seem to me that more of the pop would be popular among the young audience. But jazz, I mean, it's my favorite music, to tell you the truth. So why jazz?
Well, I grew up listening to a lot of jazz and blues and R&B and soul from the 60s and the 70s, and I just fell in love with it from a very young age. I didn't really know what genres were, of course, at that time in my life when I was really becoming totally music obsessed as a kid. But I have always seen far more similarities between all of the genres that I like so much, far more similarities than differences. And for me, jazz encompasses so many of the more compelling elements of pop and rock and roll and R&B, and they can all live harmoniously together. And so one of my greatest musical enjoyments is to be able to mesh all of the different things that inspire me into the music I make. And that oftentimes gets described as jazz, and I think part of that is because, you know, some of a lot of the material I've recorded hails from the American Songbook and have been recorded by all of these jazz greats. But my musical palette extends quite a ways beyond that, and so I really love being able to sort of pay homage to my jazz roots in addition to all of these other things. So to me, it feels like a natural transition. To other people, it might be like, well, you know, I don't really, you know, when they think of jazz, they might think of Charlie Bird, you know, like a specific kind. But for me, it's a very expansive genre that has reached its influence into every other genre. So it's sort of, for me, like this grandparent of other music.
I hear you. Now, the thing is that jazz can be very impromptu. I mean, it's improvisational in many ways. Do you read music, by the way?
I am terrible at reading music. I play and sing and learn everything by ear whenever possible.
You know, it's the reason I ask you is that, I mean, this is a apples and orange point, but Pavarotti, who was the most famous opera singer, couldn't read music, but he was a genius.
Right.
Now, I know this is a silly question to ask somebody about themselves. How do you account for the fact that you're so I don't know. I'm going to say many things about you, but how do you account for the fact that you're just so musically inclined?
Well, I honestly don't know how to answer that question for many reasons. But all I know for a fact is that I have always felt an affinity toward making music. When I was a child, you know, rhythms would just enchant me, and singing was something that I did as soon as I had verbal ability. You know, I have these tapes from when I was 2 and 3 years old of, you know, singing my sentences, and I'm really glad that my parents captured these little glimpses into my psyche, my childhood psyche. But I always was enthralled by music, and I think it just came out of me from the moment, you know, that I began developing my personality. I don't know why. Yeah. And I've always loved it. It's been my biggest passion in my life, and I think I have an extremely sensitive musical ear, right. And I think that probably, for whatever reason, that came to me from my early years. You know, that's really helped me a lot to be able to learn music quickly, to be able to hear really sensitive differences between things, which are things that I, as a musician, I continue to try to develop, because having a sensitive ear is such an integral part, because music is just as much listening as it is creating sound.
Absolutely. Now, I want to get a little contemporary now. I want to talk about something that you probably weren't aware that I was going to ask you, and that is, when you've traveled all over the world, you've been to Korea, you've been to Japan, you've been virtually everywhere now. Now, the thing about music, as far as I know and as far as I can say, is that it kind of creates an atmosphere and an attitude that keeps people together. Even if they're at war, when there's music there, it just changes everything. Don't you agree?
I do. I absolutely agree. I think music is one of those universal languages, you know, music and math. But music's arguably more fun.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, no, it does. It links people's humanity. I think everybody understands the language of music. It's such an ancient part of being a human. and I think we still, even if we're separated by borders and by nationalities and ideologies, we all feel something when we listen to music. And sometimes even, the language barrier means nothing. You can feel the same thing as somebody who can't understand you and vice versa when you're listening to the same music.
Yeah.
And there's something beautifully unifying about that.
I hear you. It's so interesting. I've watched people sing. I've watched them dance. I've watched them kind of do everything that is art oriented. And when I see them, they look so excited and so passionate and so happy to be doing what they do best. So now, since you were planning for this album, or it's part of your original, can you tell us why you've decided to go into original music direction this time around?
Yeah. Well, so I've included original music on every one of my albums. There's at least a song or two that I've written, featured on every one of the other 9 albums I've created. But many people don't necessarily know that I've been a songwriter for as long as I've been a singer. As long as I've been a professional musician, I've been composing, been writing songs, and these songs always mean a lot to me because, of course, they reflect where I'm at with my life. They tell stories that are important to me, and I always, I've for a long time dreamed about this day where I could create an album of just the things that sort of came out of me. And the more that I was receiving feedback from audience members and listeners of my recordings stating that they would really love to hear more of these original songs, it started to occur to me of, well, maybe this is something that not just I am craving. Maybe this is an experience some of my fans would like to have as well, and kind of gave me the confidence. It gave me the confidence to think that it wasn't just a pet project idea of mine, but that there was actually like a space that needed to be filled in for my listeners. Yeah. And that idea really excited me. And all of these songs have been coming to me for the last couple of years that have just been blowing my mind. And I felt really passionate about them, and I feel like they've communicated something really important for me. They've just helped me a lot. And so I'm really excited about a lot of my new compositions from the last 2 years. Wow. And also, with launching this Kickstarter campaign, it's serving to totally thrust me out of what my known path, I guess, in all ways, because I'm making this album of original music. I'm working with a producer from outside for the first time, and I'm, having this Kickstarter campaign, which is only happening for 8 more days. But a lot of fans are, they're coming to support this music before it even exists, and so I'm getting to engage with my fans in a new way, and it's been a life-changing experience already.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, Kickstarter, for those people in our audience who don't really know what Kickstarter is, why don't you tell them? And again, I understand that you need the money in order to really produce albums. It's probably extraordinarily expensive. But, give our audience a little understanding of Kickstarter and how they can help you.
Yeah, well, Kickstarter has been around for a few years now, but it's one of several different crowdfunding platforms where fans of something, it's not limited to only music. There are people who create campaigns for all kinds of creative endeavors on Kickstarter, but it allows people to contribute by pledging funds and in exchange for rewards. And so I came up with all kinds of different rewards for fans who pledge to help make this album happen, all the way from, getting the music early in advance of the rest of the world when the album is ready, and all the way to making original art for people, recording requested songs for people, doing backstage meet and greets and tickets to shows, and
wow.
Even some really kind of outside of the realm of the usual things, like, we've been experiencing all of these wildfires in the Northwest, but, we've lost a lot of trees. And so one of the packages is that I will go plant trees in the names of the pledgers, and send things that are near and dear to my heart that I collect on my travels to people, things for animal lovers. So I really kind of went all out trying to sort of really personalize this Kickstarter campaign and make it something, a real personal connection for me to my fans. And yeah.
Go on, Halie. Well, this is the question I was going to ask you. Now, Halie, you have fans all over the world, especially in places like Japan and Korea,
mm-hmm.
and you could be found on iTunes as well. Now, when you go to Japan or you go to Korea and you get this kind of response that's amazing, and not everybody speaks English, how do they appreciate your music if they don't understand English?
Well, I think it goes back to that topic we were just talking about, where the universality, of music, of music kind of being one of those things that surpasses understanding. I don't think it requires, the total a total literal comprehension. Although, a lot of my fans do know a lot of these songs. They sing along to the lyrics. Even my own songs, when I perform them, songs from my past recordings, a lot of people know those words too. So there's definitely quite a bit of language comprehension. But even beyond that, it's just music connects in a totally logical way.
Right about that.
I think it's an emotional experience.
Yeah. All right. So we're almost at the end of our show, and there must be something you want to tell our audience, because there's so many wonderful things happening in your world. So give it a shot. What would you like to tell them?
Well, I love this new music that I'm creating. I'm really excited to share it with the world, to share it with listeners. And, I know I've already mentioned it a lot, but there's such a limited amount of time left to become a part of this movement. So I would hope that anybody who's heard my music in the past, who's curious about it, would go, check out my website, or go to Kickstarter.com and see what this project is all about. Type in my name. And I just, the more the merrier. I would love to really create a community effort around this project, and that's what's happening, and I'm so grateful for that. There's also, other music out there that I'm a part of that my fans and your listeners might not know about, including a new band that I'm a part of called Halie and the Moon, which is a totally separate entity from my solo stuff, and its music is much more sort of acoustic pop oriented, and some people might really connect with that, so I totally encourage people to check that out. And I've got a lot of stuff coming up, so the best way to keep in touch with what I'm doing is to visit my website or follow me on social media. I'm all over Facebook and Twitter.
What is your website,
etc.
Halie?
My website is HalieLoren.com. So the spelling is HalieLoren.com.
Mm-hmm. Well, today my guest has been Halie Loren. She's a fabulous singer, a composer, and a person who loves what she does. And if there's anybody around who listens or wants to hear great music, just get in touch with Halie. And also think about her Kickstarter program. Again, thank you, Halie Loren, for being on the Susan Brender Show.
Thank you so very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.